everyone, Miko here with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. Thank you for joining us for our free Wednesday Zoom calls. Here you're watching on YouTube, but you could also join us on Wednesday. If you're interested in the link to these calls to join live, feel free to send us an email at info@behavioranalystsupervisor.com. You can also just check out our Instagram. We post questions every single day on Instagram. We also post the link to our free Zoom calls. Every Wednesday, we go through a different task list item area, such as A1. We'll talk a little bit about that task list item, and then we'll go through 3 mock exam questions relating to that task list area. We hope that this provides an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about the task list and also dive deep into question dissection. We here at Behavior Analyst Supervisor really focus on providing explanations on why an answer is correct and why it's also incorrect. So we appreciate that you joined us. If you have any questions throughout the duration of this video, feel free to shoot us an email, hit that like and subscribe button for more information. Also, you can always leave a comment and we'll be sure to reach back out to you. Thanks again, and I'm Miko with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. You'll also be hearing from Amy and Kevin. Talk to you soon.
All right, welcome to our free Wednesday Zoom going over ethics. Today we'll be talking about E-2, responsibility as a professional. Some of the key highlights from E-2 include things like multiple relationships. So this falls under there. The gift giving and receiving, the making sure you have integrity and honesty, following through with what we say. All of these fall within that section of the ethical code. And we'll highlight 3 of the main ones that we are pretty positive will come up on most mock exams that you take. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about how I would recommend you study for ethics. So primarily, you certainly need to read through the ethical code. That is an extremely important part of studying. Reading through the ethical code and being familiar with the code is very important. So you'll want to do that. The next thing that you'll want to do is make sure that you can understand different scenarios. So that might mean reading through your Bailey and Birch ethics book, where you can look in it, you can see different scenarios and see how they break it down. There's also this really cool website, not that you'd use it for studying, but after you graduate, you can go to it. It's abaethicshotline.com, and Dr. Bailey actually answers it. So he's one of the writers of the Bailey and Birch ethics book, but he is one of the people that actually answers that hotline, which is pretty cool. So if you're ever in the field and you experience an ethical dilemma, you can go ahead and email that hotline and they can help you out. So scenarios, reading through the code, and then obviously understanding how that code applies. We have a couple of ethics boot camps too, so if you're interested in that, just let us know and we can help you out with that. We don't list them on our website or anything like that. We include them in our All You Need package, but if it's something you're interested in, just send me an email and I'll add that to your account or whatnot. So, all right, let me add this last person and then we're gonna go through our first scenario. Again, a little bit different today. So scenario first, teaching second. Usually we talk about the task list item, but again, ethics is just slightly different. So, all right, here is our scenario. Hunter wanted to give his employees a gift during the holiday season to show his appreciation. He provided each employee with a Columbia jacket with a retail value of $59. He got these items for $9.99 each on Black Friday. What a bargain, Hunter. Is this scenario ethical? Yes, the gift value was less than $10. No, the original gift value is greater than $10. No, gift giving is not acceptable according to the code. Or yes, there is no limitation on gift giving. Go ahead and throw your answer in the chat. You can just put A, B, C, or D in the chat. If you are watching after the live course takes place, so if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to post your answers either in the comments down below or just think about it in your mind, and then we'll go through my explanation. So most people have put something in the chat, so I appreciate y'all participating. Let's talk about this. The answer to this is A, yes, the gift value was less than $10. So the monetary value, let's not talk about the original value because that's not what we paid. The monetary value that came out of the supervisor's pocket was less than $10. The ethical code, and I'm going to go to it next, but that's what the ethical code says. The gift must have a monetary value of $10 or less. We paid $10. There's a little bit of black and white here. But if I had paid $59, then certainly it would be unethical because that's greater than $10. But since they were on sale, got them on Black Friday, it's $9.99, so that value is okay. So A is the correct answer. let's go ahead and look at exactly what the code says. I am going to read this, and then I just want to talk about a couple of important things, but I copied and pasted this directly from the code. I would recommend y'all reading through it, but I will read this. Because the exchange of gifts can invite conflicts of interest in multiple relationships, behavior analysts do not give gifts to or accept gifts from clients, stakeholders, supervisees, or trainees with a monetary value of more than 10 US dollars or equivalent purchasing power in another currency. All that part means is that, if I'm in Canada, the Canadian dollar is worth, the exchange rate is different, so it would need to be under 10 US dollars. So everything comes back to the US currency for this code. Behavior analysts make clients and stakeholders aware of this requirement at the onset of the professional relationship. A gift is acceptable, and this is important too. A gift is acceptable if it functions as an infrequent expression of gratitude and does not result in financial benefit to the recipient. Instances of giving or accepting ongoing or cumulative gifts may rise to the level of a violation if this standard, if the gifts become a regular expected source of income or value to the recipient. So if I gave you a $10 Columbia jacket every single month, that becomes expected. That becomes an ethical violation because it's repetitive. This should be infrequent, as it states here, infrequent. But again, the key thing here is the monetary value of more than $10. It cannot have a monetary value of more than $10. Again, the jacket in this scenario has a value of less than $10. That's why it's acceptable. So again, we always want to bring the scenario back to the code. That's what we did here. This, again, the important pieces here is it's clients, stakeholders, supervisees, or trainees. So all of those people are incorporated in this code. If I want to bring coffee to my supervisees, it has to be infrequent, and they can't get like a triple double shot of super nitro cold brew, right? Coffee's getting expensive nowadays, y'all. I'm talking with the Starbucks the other day, it was like $8, and I was like, dang gum. Anyways, let's continue on. All right, under which circumstance would it be appropriate to supervise your significant other? A, never. This constitutes a multiple relationship. B, only after 2 years from the end date of the relationship. C, anytime after documenting that your romantic relationship has ended. Or D, 6 months after ending your romantic relationship. Again, go ahead and throw your answers in the chat or think about them. Sweet, plenty of answers in the chat. So the answer to this one, and this is probably from section 2 of the ethical code. This is probably the most confusing one. So I completely understand if you don't have this memorized. If you didn't read this section of the code, it's confusing. I'm going to read it for you next. But the answer to this is D. D, 6 months after the romantic relationship has ended. Let's look at why it's D, and then I'll come back to the scenario. So 1.11 is multiple relationships. Did I put the right one here? Hold on, sorry, I'm just reading it. Oh, I didn't put the right one here. Hold on. I'm going to read this one, and then I'm going to go on my phone and read the correct one. But because multiple relationships may result in a conflict of interest, they might harm more than one party. Behavior analysts avoid entering or creating multiple relationships, including professional, personal, and familial relationships with clients or colleagues. Behavior analysts always communicate the risk of multiple relationships to relevant individuals and continually monitor for the development of multiple relationships. If multiple relationships arise, behavior analysts take appropriate steps to resolve them. When immediately resolving a multiple relationship is not possible, behavior analysts develop appropriate safeguards to identify and avoid conflicts of interest in compliance with the code and develop a plan to eventually resolve the multiple relationship. So this, obviously, if you're dating your supervisee or your significant other is your supervisee, that's certainly a conflict of interest. This actually fits under a different code that I'm going to read in 2 seconds when I pull it up. These two kind of go together, so that's why I got mixed up, so I apologize. But I do want to read this confusing one to all of y'all because it is confusing. It's 1.14, romantic and sexual relationships is the one this actually relates to. It states behavior analysts do not engage in romantic or sexual relationships with current clients, stakeholders, trainees, or supervisees because such relationships pose a substantial risk of conflicts of interest and impaired judgment. Behavior analysts do not engage in sexual relationships with former clients or stakeholders for a minimum of 2 years from the date the professional relationship has ended. So that's pretty clear cut. That's where the 2 years comes in. It's 2 years if it's a client or stakeholder. So teacher, your client's aunt, or something like that, right? So 2 years after you've ended the professional relationship. So that's client, stakeholder, yada, yada. Now let's look at the next piece. Behavior analysts do not engage in behavior analysts do not engage in romantic or sexual relationships with former supervisees or trainees until the parties can document that the professional relationship has ended. Completion of all professional duties. That's what the documentation is. Behavior analysts do not accept supervisees or trainees, individuals with whom they've had a past romantic or sexual relationship with, until at least 6 months after the relationship has ended. So if my significant other wants me to supervise them, I need to wait 6 months after we've separated. If I have a supervisee that I catch feelings for, then we would just need to end that supervisory relationship, and then it would be ethically appropriate to date them. Now, whether or not your personal opinion of that is, we always just look at the ethical code. So I want to go through that one more time. Clients, stakeholders, it's 2 years. If my partner wants me to supervise them, I need to end our relationship and wait 6 months. If I have a supervisee that I want to date, I just need to end the relationship. There's no time requirement. It's just end the professional relationship. Does that make sense, everyone?
So you said to date a supervisee is 6 months?
No, it's literally just ending the professional relationship. It's no time limit, like tomorrow.
Okay, but
To supervise someone you've dated, it's 6 months.
Okay.
Yep. That makes sense?
Kinda,
yeah. It's confusing. Definitely made sense. So if you are married and your partner is like, hey, I want to be a BCBA and I need hours, you have to be like, oh, you got to wait 6 months and we got to divorce, right? So that's 6 months. If I'm working with someone and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is love at first sight, then I'm going to be like, okay, I'm not supervising you anymore and we can date tomorrow. Cool?
okay.
Sweet.
Quick question.
Of course.
Yeah. As an example, as you said, right? Say you're supervising an RBT, and then you like him or her. So there's no waiting time, but do you have to I guess document everything down that it's been what can I say, ended, or do you anything?
Yep, you're spot on. You need to document that the professional relationship has ended. That documentation can be as simple as your letter of resignation, or if you transition to a different department. All of that counts as documentation.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Cool, of course. All right, let's look at our last scenario, y'all. We're making great time. This is an interesting one too, and a big change from the code. So let's go through it. Not really a big change, but it's just more of an emphasis now. So I'll rephrase that. You grew up in a rural area with little interaction with other cultures. Recently, you have taken on a client from an entirely different culture than yours, and you notice that you feel strange when they engage in some of their unique practices. How should you proceed? A, transition the client to a new analyst when possible. B, continue providing services as normal. C, ask the family about their culture and attempt to learn more about their practices. Or D, discontinue services. Throw your answers in the chat, and then we'll look at the next code that this relates to. Sweet. So the answer to this, and there's I think 2 answers that work, but one that's clearly better than the other. So B and C both work per se. I think C is the most ethical answer, and we'll talk about why. But C, ask the family about their culture and attempt to learn more about their practices. Now, you could do this a couple ways. Obviously, you could flat out just ask them about their culture. You could also do some research. So if you found out what culture they're from, then you can research that culture and learn about it that way. So either of those is totally fine, and both of those are a possibility. Now, B is not a wrong answer, because you should continue to provide services, but that falls short of our obligation. Our obligation kind of is here. So behavior analysts maintain awareness that their personal Biases or challenges, mental health, physical, legal, marital, financial, all those may interfere with the effectiveness of their behavioral work. Behavior analysts take appropriate steps to resolve. And that's the key here is like, okay, I've inventoried my feelings. I understand that there's a situation here that makes me uncomfortable. Probably it's due to a lack of knowledge. Like maybe I'm just not informed on this other culture. And so when they engage in an activity, it's uncomfortable for me, probably because I'm just unfamiliar. So now I need to learn more about the culture, and ultimately I need to continue providing adequate care. Now, there's obviously other situations that we could arise in. Say you are of one culture and then you're servicing another culture, and there might be some like global issues going on between those cultures. Or if you're servicing a family and they say something derogatory or bigoted towards you, then certainly you don't have to continue providing services. But if it's a simple like, we're just from two cultures, maybe like you're Christian and the other person is atheist, and it makes you uncomfortable. That's being uncomfortable is not a reason to not provide services to someone, right? That would be discriminatory. Now, if it becomes bigoted, targeted, anything like that, then it is certainly a reason. So the new code is very clear about how we need to handle diversity, equity, inclusion, training, all things of that nature. And for the better, right? We need to be diverse because we're a diverse community, we're a diverse culture, we're a diverse world. And now the code reflects that. So I think those are some good things that are stated out in the code. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm going to look in the chat real quick to see if there's any questions. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself as well. Okay, cool. I'm going to throw everyone's names into my random name calculator, and I'm going to spin it, and someone is going to win a mini mock. So let me do this.
Hi, Kevin. I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So to transfer services, under what conditions are we able to do to transfer services?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons why we would be able to terminate services. Transition might be a little different. So you could transition services. We can look at it in the same respect, but to terminate would be number one, if there's no progress being made. So obviously, if there's no progress, you can terminate services. Number two would be if the family requests to terminate services, you can terminate in those situations. If the client is being harmed, you can terminate services. If there's no funding, you can terminate services. So those are the main reasons why you could terminate services. Obviously, if you're moving or going on leave for any reason, you could also transition the client to another analyst. Now, in all of these situations, you should attempt to continue care because continuity of care is so important. So you'll want to, however possible, continue providing services until you can get another analyst. So that's kind of what we want to do. Great question.
Awesome, thank you.
Could services be terminated due to lack of parental training and?
So if there's lack of involvement, it depends. So there needs to be, yes, it can, but you need to first address the barriers. And then if after some time, so not 1 month, not 1 week, but if after some time you have not, it's clapping because I just spun it, so that's what you're hearing. That's hilarious. But anyways, if you've attempted to bridge the gap, if you've attempted to help the client and help the caregivers through whatever it is, then that would be a situation in which you could terminate if they're still not participating in services.